Hi, Taylor T. Carlson, and back with another Power Ranger figure review for you today. As my shirt probably told you, today we're going to be taking a look at the White Ranger, Tommy Oliver, as portrayed by Jason David Frank. But we're not looking at one White Ranger figure today, we're going to be looking at three White Ranger figures. We're going to look at the Legacy Collection, the Lightning Collection, and the S.H.Figuarts collection, all of which made figures of Tommy Oliver as the White Ranger. I'm going to go through and give my individual review for each of these figures, and I'm going to give my verdict as to what one's the best and maybe what ones you should stay away from. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start things off with the now out-of-print Legacy Collection White Ranger. This was from Saban and Bandai back before they sold the license over to Hasbro. So here's the front of the box here. I think this was lightly used, so the box is maybe a little scuffed up. Nice Power Ranger logo on the top there. On the bottom, got all the choking hazards and obligatory copyright stuff. The side, you can see into the figure there through the plastic, which is kind of nice. Back cover's got pictures of some other figures that were in this line. The other 5 Core Mighty Morphin Rangers, you could actually buy those figures in this line and get pieces to build the Dino Megazord from the first season of the show, so that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, nothing like that with this particular character, because he had separate Zords and all that. So we'll go ahead and pull this out now. There is a lightning bolt backdrop in the package. I'm just going to leave that in there. Sometimes they have like ads and stuff in there, but nothing here this time. Here's a look at the figure on the plastic sheet with the accessories. We've got the core figure here, of course, a removable holster, and the Saba sword right there. So let's go ahead and get him out. And I'll get his accessories out too so we can show those off. One of the first things I noticed, the Saba sword that comes with this is very large, like it's in the extended configuration. And here's this holster for Saba, so we'll stick that into the little peg on the side of the figure. And I'll just go up and down and show off different aspects of the figure. The shield on his chest is pretty firmly attached. You can actually lift this up and out slightly, but it's, for the most part, molded in pretty good, which is a good thing. Yeah, the helmet likeness is pretty solid. That goes left and right, and you can swivel up and down as well. Ball joints in the arms, so those are pretty well articulated. Articulated elbows as well. And the hands rotate. This just has one head and one set of hands, and they're both like the gripping style hands, so that goes along with the Saba sword. And then figure can bend up and down at the torso. Get down to the legs, you know, ball joint legs for some pretty good articulation there. Knees are articulated. Yeah, these also rotate this way. And then the feet are slightly adjustable as well. Okay, so let's put the Saba sword in his hand and see how it looks. Actually, here's a close-up of the sword there. You got the red eyes and everything. A little hard to see on camera here, but it's actually a pretty impressive looking piece for what it is, especially considering it's just an accessory used by an action figure. And there, right there, we've got him holding Saba. And now we'll try to put Saba into the holster. Now, like I've said in some of the past reviews I've done for Legacy Collection figures, I'm not crazy about the fact that they made these with removable holsters. They never remove their holsters on the show, and that actually means they fall out pretty easily. And see, this has like a split back holster, so it opens up to allow for the thing to get in, but it's kind of hard to get that in there either way. And another problem too is the Saba sword is way too big, so it ends up hitting on his armpit area. And it's really hard to play with the figure with that in place, not to mention the fact that the holster is not permanently attached, which means it can really easily be knocked out. Overall, though, Not a bad looking figure. As with the other Legacy collections, this one's a little more glossy in terms of the paint job than some of the other figures, particularly on the shield region. But for now, we will go ahead and move on, and next up is the Lightning Collection, Mighty Morphin White Ranger. I got this autographed by Jason David Frank when I went to his in-store a few weeks ago out here in Vegas. Nice artwork on the cover there. Got the drawing of the White Ranger, which looks pretty cool. Got that on that side as well. Top of the box, bottom of the box. And now let's go ahead and crack him open. These little flaps on the back of the Lightning Collection are a little tricky to get out, and sometimes I have ripped the packages opening those, which is never a good thing. And kind of similar to the Legacy Collection, this has like a backing card, which again looks like a lightning bolt. I'm not seeing that in here. I might have accidentally thrown that out. Not that it's really something that's totally necessary. Here's this version of Tommy on his card. So we'll get him off of here. We'll get all his accessories, and we'll do what we do with the figure and see how this one stacks up. Okay, so once again, here's our actual figure there. We'll look at him a little more thoroughly in just a minute. Here's the Sabasaur. This one's a little smaller, and disappointingly, there's not really any paint on the face, so like it doesn't have the red eyes or anything. That's a little disappointing. And the figure by default has a karate chop hand and a gripping hand, but then you also have two fist hands that you can interchange on the figure as well. Then, as with most of the Lightning Collection figures too, there's a lightning energy effect. You can put that on the end of the Sabasaur for display purposes. And we have our Tommy Oliver head here, if I can get him out of the plastic. And one of my chief complaints with the figure I'm going to address before I get on with the rest of the figure, and it's just not a very good likeness of Jason David Frank here. I mean, this looks almost more like Rocky, the second Mighty Morphin Red Ranger and the Zeo Blue Ranger. It just doesn't really look like Jason David Frank, so that's kind of disappointing, but there's no rule that says you have to put that head on the figure if you don't want to. Getting on with the actual figure, this one's a little smaller than the Legacy Collection, which is pretty much par for the course when it comes to comparing the Lightning figures to the Legacy Collection. But these tend to be a little more well-detailed. Like in this case, it's almost got a bit of a cloth look on it with the actual suit. The shield's a little glossier than the rest of the figure, but most of it's got the matte finish you've come to expect from most of the figures in the Lightning Collection. So here's our head. Once again, it swivels left and right and can adjust up and down. Even though I'm not a fan of it, I'm going to pop this off and I'm going to put on that unmasked Tommy Oliver head that really looks nothing like Tommy Oliver. Okay, so now we've got that head on there. And again, a lot of the usual features from the Lightning Collection. You got ball joint arms, articulated elbows. The hands are rotated. They're also interchangeable with the fists that I showed off earlier. His gripping hand is over here. So again, ball joint arms, adjustable elbows, rotating hands. This figure can, rotate at the torso. Again, pretty common for the Lightning Collection. One thing I really appreciate about this figure is that the holster is permanently attached to the character. It's not removable, which means it's a lot more sturdy, and you're not going to have to worry about the holster falling off or the Sabasaur falling out. Down here, ball joint leg articulation, articulated knees. The boot parts down here rotate, and then the feet are adjustable as well, both front to back and left to right. So let's stick Saba in his holster, and then we will try having him hold Saba. Now, Saba actually fits a little better in this figure than it does in the one from the Legacy Collection. It's still a little big compared to the figure, but I would say this one fares quite a bit better. Let's see how Saba looks in Tommy's hand. These Lightning Collection figures, a lot of the time, it's a bit of a struggle to get the accessories into the hands, although once you get them in there, they're usually gripping it pretty firmly. Okay, and there he's holding Saba. We'll try to put this lightning energy piece on the end. Okay, and that actually doesn't look half bad right there. If you want to display this figure, that's a nice little prop you could put on there. Okay, now he's got his fists on there. And if you look at this figure, there's like, you know, little ruffles and ridges, so it almost looks like a fabric type costume. I appreciate that they made it look like, you know, a costume, but they did it without using, like, you know, cloth pieces and things like that, because those don't always go well on action figures. So I'll go ahead and pop off the Tommy Oliver head and put back on the White Ranger masked head. And there we go. So overall, I would say this figure is an improvement over the Legacy Collection, even if the Legacy Collection one is a little larger. And now, we've got one more figure we're going to look at, and that is the S.H.Figuarts. This is a figure from Tamashii Nations and Bandai. Got a 25th anniversary logo there. S.H.Figuarts is a line of figures that goes across a lot of different media franchises, not just Power Rangers. They make Dragon Ball figures, Sailor Moon figures, Marvel figures, DC figures, Star Wars figures. This company does a little bit of everything, and some of the stuff they do is very impressive. They're a cut above average action figures, though at the same time, generally you are going to pay a little more for these. I've seen, especially some out-of-print ones, going for a pretty penny on several online sites, but we'll go ahead and see how this figure of Tommy Oliver fares. There's a gold background card in here. That's removable. It's just like a piece of cardboard. This actually has instructions, which is pretty cool. Usually you'll find those with Figuarts figures. Here's Tommy on his card. There's also a flintal piece of plastic that we'll be removing before we get to looking at the actual figure. And he comes by default with his unmasked head on, but here's the Saba sword. This is probably the smallest but the most detailed of all the pieces. This is it in the smaller formation. This is the larger one, so you can snap that off and then put the other piece on. So you have the Saba sword in both formations, which is pretty cool. And then we'll get him out of here. Like the Legacy Collection, the holster is detachable, so this just is a little peg that goes into the hole here. And there that is. And if you want to get the Saba sword in there, you have to detach it and then reattach it through the holster. But first, we'll go through and just look at the figure's body overall. One of the first things you'll notice here, the likeness of Jason David Frank is much better on this figure than it is on the Lightning Collection one. This has him with like the longer hair, whereas he had the ponytail on that one. And as with a lot of the S.H.Figuarts, this has quite a bit of articulation. One other thing I also forgot to take out of the package, there's several hands here. We'll try a few of those in the video. Like he's got gripping hands, open hands. He's got fist hands attached by default, but this way, got a few more options to what you can do with the figure. I'm going to take the Tommy head off and put on the White Ranger head. And as you can tell, the peg in here is pretty small, so it can be kind of a pain to get that in and out. Got it on without too much trouble that time. So there he is. Now, this adjusts up and down, also rotates. He's got ball joint arms, kind of similar to the other figures, ball joint arms, articulated elbows, and, rotating hands that are removable as well. But one problem I have with this figure, even though the shield is actually more firmly attached, the shoulder pads aren't. So when you move them up, you actually knock these loose, which is very annoying, and putting those back into place is a pain. I wish they just made these firm, even if it did restrict the articulation a little. You can see it doesn't take much effort to knock these loose. Figure rotates at the torso and also bends up and down slightly. Again, ball joint legs, articulated knees. and some articulation in the feet as well. We'll go ahead and put the holster back on, see if we can get Saba in there, and then we'll have him hold Saba. Now, like I was saying earlier, you have to actually detach Saba and then put one end up through the holster, then put this end back on here. Not the best fit, and that holster is really easy to knock loose, which is a pain. And like I said, those little pegs on the ends of the hands make this a painful experience at times. Okay. And then we got him with the Saba sword in place. Honestly, getting that in there was a much bigger pain than it needed to be, and I'm not going to find myself playing with this figure as often just because of, a lot of the little factors like that. I'm going to put his fist hand back on. Now, S.H.Figuarts tends to be, a more expensive, more high-quality line of toy, but honestly, I gotta say I'm not impressed with this figure. First of all, the build of the figure is totally wrong. Jason David Frank is a well-toned, well-built martial artist. This figure almost looks feminine. This does not look like a man. It does not look like Jason David Frank's body. It's very sleek and much more slender than it should be. The figure itself also has this kind of weird silver tinge to it. And the White Ranger from Die Ranger, the Super Sentai show, was actually a little kid who grew into an adult when he became the White Ranger. So it's almost like they based this figure's body more on that than they did Jason David Frank. And yet this still says Power Rangers on it, not Die Ranger. And of course it has the Tommy Oliver head. Like I said before, those shoulder pads on the armor are really easy to knock loose. And then, for no apparent reason, he's got this random circle on his butt. I don't know what the purpose of that is, but with an S.H.Figuarts figure, if I'm paying extra money for a high-quality figure, it should be pretty devoid of things like that. There's also no holes in the feet for, display with play sets and things like that, so that's kind of disappointing. So, we come to the end of this video. What is my final verdict? Okay, S.H.Figuarts, I love the S.H.Figuarts line, but this is not a good figure. The build of the body is totally wrong. The little pegs and everything, getting the stuff on and off is even more difficult than it is with the Lightning Collection. And getting Saba in his hand, getting the holster to stay on, are a much larger pain than they need to be. The things I will say in this figure's defense, though, are that it is a much better likeness of Tommy Oliver than any of the other figures are, which is a step in the right direction there, if nothing else. And it's got the most detailed of the Saba swords, and I do like how they had interchangeable versions with the extended and protracted blades. So, S.H.Figuarts, unfortunately, does come in last here. In the middle, I've got the out-of-print Legacy Collection from Saban and Bandai. It's a pretty big, solid, impressive-looking figure. It does the character justice. One thing I pointed out on the Blue Zeo Ranger figure from this line, they had, sort of the chiseled stomach, which I think is a little ridiculous. This has that same thing going on. Not that Jason David Frank's not in great shape. And then the Saba sword, of course, is too big and too hard to display here. And it's very easy for that holster to fall out. So I got to put this one in the middle as far as figures go. It also doesn't have any interchangeable heads or hands like the other figures have. And I've got to give my overall nod to the Hasbro Lightning Collection figure. This is the only one that has a permanently attached holster that it's not too hard to get the Saba sword in and out of. It's got a set of interchangeable hands, interchangeable head. Honestly, not a big fan of the likeness of Tommy Oliver on the interchangeable head, but you can remedy that by just not putting that head on the figure. It also does have the lightning accessory to go on the end of the weapon, so that's kind of nice. So, in the long run, the figure that I do recommend most is the Lightning Collection. It's the one that's most accessible and easiest to get, and if you ask this fan, probably the most impressive of the lot. Have you had a chance to pick up any of these White Ranger figures yet? Are you a fan of Tommy Oliver as portrayed by Jason David Frank? And which one of these figures do you think does him justice? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content. I'm always posting new videos. And give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson. See you next time.